Hi, I'm Becopin and this is Rappler Talk. Today we are joined by Police Director Camilo Cascolan, the Director for Operations of the Philippine National Police, to talk about Project Double Barrel Reloaded and the PNP's role in the war on drugs. Hi, sir. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello, Bea. Good morning.
Sir, so the PNP was pulled out. The president ordered the PNP to stop all police operations the end of January.
30th. Yes.
And then 4 weeks later, he gave the go signal for the police to return in the war on drugs. So how are we handling our return to the president's war on drugs?
Well, everything's going smoothly. Double Barrel Reloaded is actually a much more reinvigorated, but at the same time, the respect for all kinds of policies and the rule of law is actually imposed. The members of the drug enforcement groups are vetted, and there is what you call the involvement of the community, most especially with regard to the religious sector and the barangay chairman and officials.
Okay, aside from those things, or that was a very stark change, I think, yung involvement.
Yes.
Explicit involvement of like the religious sector. What makes Reloaded different from its previous versions? Like the original double barrel, and then you had Alpha after 6 months. So, ano yung pinakamalaking change, I guess, that we did?
Well, first of all, if I may be able to explain to you what double barrel reloaded structure is. The double barrel reloaded is actually still focuses on two.
Okay.
It still focuses on the two-pronged approach, which is the upper barrel, which is the high-value target approach, and the lower barrel, the Project Tokhang, revisited for lower and up. The task force of the PNP on anti-illegal drugs is actually led by no other than our chief PNP, Police Director General Ronald Marapon de la Rosa. It is vice-chaired by the DCO. Now it's Police Director, Deputy Director General Jojo Mendez, who heads the DCO. He's now the DCO now. And underneath him are actually 4 subcommittees, namely the Secretariat who takes charge of all the things that needs to be attended for the activities. We have the Intelligence Fusion Subcommittee under the Directorate for Intelligence. We also have the Case Monitoring Center, or subcommittee, which is handled by the Directorate for Intelligence and Detection Management. They take charge of all the cases that happen within the operations. That is to include, of course, all those they say that are not part of the operations. The other one is, the last one would be the Field Inspection and Evaluation Subcommittee. This FINE subcommittee is actually taken charge by the Oversight Committee, of which we supervise, monitor, and evaluate all those operations done by our regions and all operating units. And at the same time, we conduct regular validation of all their activities. Below are the 4 task groups, namely high-value target revalidated. This is led by the PNP Drug Enforcement Group. But assisting them are actually the drug enforcement units in the regions. Regions, provincial, municipal, cities. The PNP Drug Enforcement Group takes charge of all the high-value targets, or whom we have listed down, so that they would be able to arrest and account these people.
These are the targets, sir, na validated lists from the DI, whatever.
Yes. It has been coordinated and had a workshop with PDEA, actually. And at the same time, these are mostly manufacturers, protectors, cuddlers, financiers, and those who distribute. These are those on the top.
So even but the street level, sir, does that include?
Of course, that's why we have the regional DEUs. They take charge of the watch list in the regions, in their provinces, and in their municipalities. And the workload actually is in the DEUs, most especially in the municipalities, in the cities. The provinces actually help out also, but they basically supervise the municipalities in doing their job.
So very local talaga siya, sir, no? It's really going down
That is why in Project Tokhang, the reason why I said that a while back, in Project Tokhang, we already we coordinate and send letters to the barangay officials, chairmen, even to the religious sectors.
Yes.
If needed, we also ask the upright, prominent individuals in the barangay to join us in Project Tokhang, most especially.
Right.
This is so that we would be able to come up with witnesses on how our operations are really being done.
Okay, that's an interesting point. Kasi Sir, Tokhang, I mean, for better or worse, it's had a very, what's the proper term? Controversial, or it depends on whose side you're on, I think.
Yes.
Tokhang either strikes fear or assures people, di ba, that the PNP is doing its job. How do we address those allegations? Kasi parang in the past few months, you've had cases na supposedly police are using Tokhang.
Well, unfortunately, and sad to say, they use Tokhang in a different manner. Tokhang actually is there to assure the people that we are really out and coming out right with our procedures and our system. Tokhang means knock and plead.
Yes.
This was actually done in Davao through, of course, the leadership of our no other than our chief PNP.
Yes.
In doing Tokhang, they knock on they have a watch list. They knock on in the houses of these people and ask them to surrender and, if possible, be rehabilitated.
Right.
In the sense of the using it in another term, it's sad to say that they've used it in Tokhang for ransom.
Exactly. Yeah. The GHQ case, Tokhang yung na-label doon.
Yes. And then when they say that somebody is killed because of drug operations, they say he was Tokhang.
Yeah.
But it's not good. That's why we are trying to rejuvenate the word in such a way that what we do right now is we revisit.
Yeah.
That's why it's Oplan Tokhang Revisited. We revisit those who have surrendered before. Then try to get their biographical profile, if not completed, and then we ask them to be rehabilitated.
Okay.
And I will explain that later on while I'll go ahead. The other one is we visit people who did not surrender before but was part of a watch list. At the same time, the Directorate for Intelligence actually revalidates the lists. It's given to the regions, to the Drug Enforcement Group and the Drug Enforcement units, and they do what is the appropriate action. They sometimes go on case build-up, etc. But for Tokhang, we visit.
Okay.
When they are asked for rehabilitation, we now have the other task group named communications plan or strategy and rehabilitation.
Okay.
This is one of the things now that differentiates Oplan Double Barrel Reloaded from the original Oplan Double Barrel Alpha.
Factor of rehabilitation.
We will initiate rehabilitation initiatives. Why? One of the reasons why there was a downtrend on the surrenderers is actually the surrenderers think that nothing will happen to them if they surrender.
Okay.
Some even others think that they will be exposing themselves.
Okay. Yeah.
What we do now is we have what we call as accorded by the DPCR, General Constantino. He says that we will be having rehabilitation inside camps. That also will involve actually other policemen who are also into drugs. But we will focus ourselves on the surrenderers so that they would be able to come out and go back to the community.
Okay. Reintegrating them.
Okay. And the other last task group actually is the Financial Investigation Task Group, which actually investigates
That's
the
for the
finances.
big fish.
Yeah,
That's for the big
fish. Yes. You know, in EO number 15, this is actually the interagency task force on the anti-illegal drugs. It has 4 clusters. The first one is the advocacy cluster, which is handled by the Department of Interior and Local Government. We have the prosecution, which is, the law enforcement, handled by the PDEA, but the muscle of the arm would be, of course, coming from the PNP.
Yeah.
And of course, we still have the PDEA there with us always doing our high-impact operations.
Right.
We also have the prosecution under the DOJ. And we now have the rehabilitation and reintegration taken charge by the DSWD and the DOH. And that's how it will work.
Pero sir, hindi ba yun added burden also on the police na at this point you're also, inaako nyo na rin yung kasi that was the criticism of the war on drugs, na we're only parang, we are not addressing it as a health issue, di ba?
Yeah.
parang hindi ba added burden for you guys that you're also, inaangkin na yun rin yung
We want to assure the
rehabilitation?
people that there's life after Tokhang, or there's life after double barrel, there's life after using drugs.
Right.
And we wanted to do it right here in our camps.
Okay.
And one thing that for sure that the surrenderers will be looking for is for them to be rehabilitated.
Yes.
We did this before. We had a lot of initiatives, though it was actually somewhat a burden to us before.
Yeah.
Now we're looking at it as something special that we could do for our people.
Right.
We want to service them completely. And maybe we consider it also as a health issue. That's why we actually asked the support of the Department of Health and the DOH, the SWD, and all others, most especially the local government. In so doing, we would be able to come up with their trust on us.
Right.
We know that we need to satisfy a lot of factions in the government, but this time around, we are not working. We are not working just for ourselves, but we would want to work for the community wherein the PNP is actually connected to.
Sir, of course, since day one, and of course you would know this, parang there's always been criticism, right? Internationally, locally. And although the PNP is saying na parang, no, our policemen are above, I mean, except for clear exceptions like Santa Isabel and the G.H.Ju case, the line has always been, the PNP is following the law. Pero parang the way you talk about it, it's like you are listening to the criticisms. You're taking it into consideration somehow in crafting our plan.
The biggest factor in our drive against illegal drugs is actually the impact to the community.
Okay.
It is very important for us to listen to the gripes or the what is happening in the ground. We came from the ground, and we want our drive to be very orderly, and at the same time something that an activity that respects all the people. One very important thing maybe that they have discussed would be there were violations against human rights.
Yes.
There were violations against
not following police procedure.
Not following police procedures. This time around, if there were lapses, which is still to be investigated, then if there really are lapses, this time around we need to correct it if there were.
All right.
We still have to accept. We still have to receive a lot of reports concerning our people who did not follow the procedures of the system, and at the same time the respect for human rights. And we will be here to receive it and be able to act on it if possible. But this time we do it clean. We do it with the procedures that is placed on our coordinating instructions. We invite the barangay captains, religious sectors. If need yet, we invite the media, we invite prominent families, prominent individuals. And if ever, we could go to the extent of even asking for the support of other agencies. We want this to be a whole of nation approach. This time, we would want to open ourselves to the community and to all other agencies that the PNP is there for the community. We do not want that the people will be afraid of the policemen whenever they see them. That is why during operations also, most especially for Tokhang, everybody should be in uniform. That is to include, of course, the barangay tanods who will be coming with us. The PIDEA who will also be joining us.
Oh, even PIDEA?
Yes.
Kung kaya,
I'm
guessing.
If it's practical, they could come to us during Tokhang. But during high impact operations, the PIDEA should be there.
They must be there. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Sir, parang yung dating sa akin, the way you're talking it na, parang it was in a way good thing din yung suspension nyo, in a way na parang it made you reflect, I guess, on any lapses that might have happened in the planning before.
You know, in all activities, even for individuals, maybe in our programs for our career whatsoever, we need also to reflect, and sometimes we need to relax. You need 1 day, 2 days. That's how it is. And this time, with this kind of activity, we need also some time for us so that we would be able to see what things we have done right, what things we have done wrong, what is supposed to be done, and what is the right thing to do.
So I think another controversy that the PNP always, and not just the PNP, but the government in general, yung sheer number of killings that just killings that may or may not actually be related to drugs. Yung mga nakikita sa nabangkay, sir, na mga pusher, wag tularan, or minsan walang sign, pero nakagapos na lang, natatagpuan sa mga kalsada. Yung criticism naman doon, sir, parang tila the PNP isn't doing enough to...
There are a lot of investigations happening now. As of this time, we have a total of 5,824 homicide cases.
Okay.
And out of this, actually, 1,370 were investigated and found to be drug-related.
Okay.
There are 894 cases that had been investigated but are not actually drug-related.
Okay.
A lot of which is personal grudge.
Okay.
More or less 800.
Pero sir, ito yung parang vigilante style pa rin yung labas ng katawan?
No.
Not necessarily?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
That's why, you know what, a lot of people, it's good also that we were suspended for a month.
Yeah.
Because it's good also to note that there are a lot of people taking advantage of our war against drugs. I mean not war, on our drive, on our campaign against illegal drugs.
Police and otherwise.
Yes, police and otherwise. We will not say that the police are clean with regard to drugs. They may be involved even with drug syndicates.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we are actually looking on.
Yes.
There are still a number of incidents to be determined. More or less 3,560
Ongoing
investigations.
To.
We just cannot swiftly hasten, or we do not just hasten investigations.
For the sake of...
We might be doing something wrong if we hasten it.
Yeah.
If there are a lot of cases that may be swiftly investigated and resolved, but there are really some that we need to have thorough investigations.
Pero so to clarify, the DUI, that's the deaths under investigation, that's different from all the homicides because it's a lower figure. If I'm
No, actually the truth is, we just had 5,000, more or less 5,800 homicide cases before it was called deaths under investigation.
Okay.
Then we were talking about it. So right now we agreed that we will call it homicide cases first.
Okay.
Until such time that we have investigated it and it was proven to be murder, then that will be the time that we declare it as a murder case.
Okay, just to clarify the terminologies involved. Yung ano rin, sir, aside from that, there have been cases of especially in NCR, the districts actually pinpointing yung mga vigilante groups who are apparently actually targeting people in their communities. Yun din, sir, yung criticism din doon na parang, why aren't you chasing? If I recall right, Human Rights Watch, their point was parang, how can these gunmen or killers get away with murder literally without the local police tracking them down? That's
First thing is, as I've told you, there are a lot of people who want to put it in their hands.
Right.
Well, you say you're a vigilantes. The first people that you have to monitor and to support, to look and see if they're doing something or not, or if they're around, are the policemen.
Yes.
If there are no policemen, that would be your chance. And usually in committing murder, those things are used. When you say murder, it's premeditated.
Yes.
And when you premeditate something, you need to look at a lot of things so that you will not be arrested.
Yeah, of course.
So it's very simple that it's very hard for the policemen to arrest people who would do this and were able to do this because of the fact that they resort to firearms that are actually loose, not licensed.
Right.
They resort also to wearing their uniforms, or maybe wearing what you call their clothes differently, and when they go out from the crime scene, they have a different cloth. I am not saying that this is their case, but what I'm saying is, whenever somebody commits murder, it's very hard for you to arrest him.
Right.
That's why it's called murder, because it's premeditated.
Yeah.
But the PNP is doing its best to actually arrest and account for these people who are called vigilantes. That's why in one of the interviews of our chief PNP, General De La Rosa, he says that he will be going after the vigilantes. We were able to arrest three people. I think that was 2 months ago, and we hope that we would be able to arrest more of them. In our investigation, there are already more or less 845 cases, of which we were able to arrest the suspects.
Okay.
Cases of murder cases wherein the suspects were actually arrested.
Right.
And we also have more or less 588 cases which were cleared. When we say cleared, the suspects were not arrested.
Okay. But at least na
At least,
pinpoint.
yes. The pinpoint, 845 suspects were actually arrested and cases filed against them.
Last few questions na lang, sir. Initially, it was 6 months during the election. It has extended to a year. And now the president is saying, no, this campaign against illegal drugs will continue up until my last day in office. On top of that, you have deaths to investigate, and you have the other general anti-criminality responsibilities of the PNP. Like, how will this 160,000 strong PNP sustain that up until 2022?
Well,
it's a lot of expectations.
Yeah. First of all, when the president said 6 months, he was only thinking then, as I've said, he was thinking that the problem with regard to drugs is this small.
Yes.
When he became president, he was able to see the gigantic problem with regard to drugs.
Did it surprise you also?
Yeah, for me.
Siyempre, before you were DO,
yes.
You weren't that privy.
Yes.
I'm assuming.
Very true, because most especially when we were able to see the number of surrenderers, most especially for the first and second month, everybody was appalled. Actually, we didn't expect that big.
A million, more than a million,
yes.
Right? When you
1.2 million
1.2,
surrenderers,
yeah.
And there are a lot of accounted yet before that. Now, the problem then was we were looking at the drug problem in a different kind of way, small, just a little town, municipality, etc. Now we looked at it nationwide, most especially for me, that I'm the DO. I was actually challenged by the fact that a lot of them were surrendered. There were a lot of numbers of those who were using it.
Right.
And not only that, we were actually surprised that a lot of people were, most especially those the high value targets, were actually into it.
Yeah.
Some with known names, and some were even known to us. But right now, with all the responsibilities that we are in, I would just want to say that we will be able to come up with a challenge. First of all, the president even said that a great percentage of all the crimes are actually drug related,
yes.
And we have proven that in our double barrel alpha. Right. We will again try to prove it in the double barrel reload.
You mentioned earlier that,
yes.
that other crimes spiked when you pulled out of the war on drugs for a month.
During the time double barrel alpha or double barrel 1, we were able to decrease the 7 crimes. Yes. And that is to include the rape, except of course for murder, because there was an increase. As I've said, there is a lot of people who were taking advantage of our activity against drugs. But right now, as compared to, we are comparing it to double barrel, alpha, etc. In February and then now March. At this moment, I was able to see that the crimes went up in February, especially
that was
in
the time that you were out.
Yes.
You were ordered
second
out.
week, third week, fourth week. But on the 5th week, which was already March, coming March and going to the 6th week, the crimes again decreased.
Okay.
That is for theft, robbery, physical injuries, carnapping of motor vehicles, two-wheeled and four-wheeled, and even rape. There was a significant decrease again for March when the anti-drug activity was pursued again. The February crimes went up, and I would be able to show you that once I'm going to brief.
So we're finalizing the numbers also, the data. Yes. So here's your last na lang na question. Project Double Barrel, from day 1, July 1 to today, parang ang daming adjustments, ang daming revisions. Sometimes because of criticism, I guess, or reacting to criticism. Yes. So, I guess what would the PNP want the public to know now that you're back in the war on drugs, now that we've reevaluated our campaign? Like, what does the PNP want the public to know in its role in the war on drugs?
Well, we want to assure the public that the PNP is here to serve most especially the community against drugs.
Right.
We hate drugs, illegal drugs. The chief PNP is very careful in directing us, most especially with regard to double barrel reloaded.
Okay.
We want to come up with not a perfect one, but at least generally a good double barrel reloaded, so that the people would be assured of their safety.
Right. Because that's the number one
Yes,
priority,
the number one
obviously.
priority. We need that the people will be free from illegal drugs and would be very comfortable in living their life.
Right. Right.
And that's the main focus of this activity.
That's a huge responsibility and huge challenge for the PNP. Again, sir, thank you for joining us. That was Police Director Camilo Cascolan, the PNP's Director for Operations, joining us for Rappler Talk. I'm Bea Copin. Thank you for joining us.